Ladies and gents, I'd like to start a short series which discusses the forever changing world which is in front of us. For many people, mainly older generations, what's going on in architecture and the arts and so on is a truly depressing thing. And to me, I don't think people around me really see that this new world that we're getting is in fact ugly. I think that people have been taught to aspire towards a new flat, a new kitchen, a new apartment, that Star Trek looking reality. And it's forever detaching them from the old, from culture, etc. And I think for most people this is obvious, but for others it isn't. I'm sorry if you can hear this noisy doodah next to me, but I can't do anything about it. I think the mic's picking it up. But where we are now is Stratford. And Stratford has changed heavily in the last few decades, heavily. And Stratford was always downtrodden, had a huge crime issue, and it's sort of been hidden. You know, they've tried to hide it with this new world, but for many of us it's not fooling anyone. And all the new world has provided is a clear insight into what some people call globo-homogeny, the speeding up of the modern world, modernism. Me personally, I have a disdain for modern architecture, modernism. I can't stand it. And I want you to join me as we have a look at a few examples, and maybe you will look at things in a different light. Instead of thinking, oh, look at that new apartment that's gone up, look how lovely it is, and I'd love to live in there, or look at that penthouse and what have you. You'd think, well, look how square it is. Look how borderline tacky it is. But it's all about your mindset and how you look at things. So here we are in Stratford, and upon turning up this morning, down there there's police. Come here for me, please, cameraman. Walk down the stairs for me as carefully as you can. There's police down there by the entrance to the old Mall, which are guarding a line which would probably be because of an attempted or possible murder. And there you see the police guarding to protect it for forensics. So this is the average morning here in Stratford. And this area here, stand back from me please, cameraman. Once again, I apologise for this escalator if it is being picked up by the mic. This area here, particularly down here, no, don't go too far, come back. I want you to look down here for me. During the day is ridden with street preachers, pickpockets, every type of character you can imagine. And it's an unrecognisable world. But if we look slightly over here, it touches upon what we're going to be talking about. Look at the skyline. Our skylines are completely different now. And to some people who've been in these sort of areas for a long time, they've become truly accustomed to this, and they make excuses for it and think it's okay. But if you really compare it with some other wonderful things that should be protected, or listed buildings and things like that, first thing you notice is there's no actual reason, stand back from the camera, there's no reason for such modern architecture to even exist, because the Victorian, Edwardian housing, etc. is so easy to replicate. So this is the reality. Billboards, modern builds, look. There's nothing to indicate where you are. So come down here for me, please, cameraman. There's Stratford Station. And this place has changed heavily over the last few years. This horrific bus shelter's been here since the 90s. And it's that modern art excuse for architecture, that horrific looking awning adds no character to the place, and it's pointless. And I could stand here and moan about pretty much every part of this metal metropolis till I'm blue in the face. but instead I'll moan about the entrance to the Mall once again, which is a very sharp reminder that Stratford has not come very far at all. And my understanding is Stratford actually has the worst crime rate in Newham. So it's not improved due to this, as I said, metal metropolis. Is that coming out clearly, cameraman? Yeah, you can see that. All right, well, let's go for a walk. So the view we're about to take now is a particularly horrific one. This is the view that you get when you walk up to Stratford Westfield. You'd be forgiven for the mistake of thinking it's a safe or nice place to be. But what an optics nightmare this is. Some of you have seen it tens of times, right? But look at it in a different light. Instead of thinking, oh, you're going to get your shopping done. Oh, I'm going to go get something to eat. Look at it. Look at this disorganized Tetris. I nearly swore there. Yeah, this disorganized spaghetti junction of hell, right? This Judge Dredd movie that's being played out by the public. And I mean, maybe I'm being biased, right? But this horrific bridge, what's this bridge in aid of? It looks incomplete, doesn't it? And people think, oh, it's lovely. Have you seen the new bridge in Stratford, back when it was being built and things like that? I remember resenting it. Let's go. You see, from here, come here from the cameraman. Just look through there. You can see sort of a remnants of the old Stratford down there with the old estates. Just down there. But all of this is new. To some people it's fantastic, they couldn't get enough of it. Some people have moved from far and wide just to come here. Some people pay up to $4 grand a month just to stay in one of these flats or apartments. The fact is, when I'm stood in a spot like this, for many people they know exactly who I am because they know the area, they saw it being built. But the point that we're making with this programme, this series, this episode is many parts of London you wouldn't know where you was without a street sign or without the internet. You could be stood in Singapore, Tokyo, you could be stood in a new build in France, and that's the huge indicator of the destruction of the individualistic culture of each nation. So the architecture that you usually find in England of the past, you know, which was around a lot longer, is being replaced very quickly in very short amounts of time. Let's go. So look at this. I mean, this excited so many people when it was finished, but look at this horrific awning up here. It just looks like a Las Vegas wannabe. And I'm not saying that just because there's casino written on the side. It just has that falsified feel, you know. It's a plastic reality. It's not part of us, what you mean. And this is but you know, the argument is, oh, we need to progress, we need to push forward. But like this, because obviously progression is important, but it's how you do something, isn't it? And for me, this is an attack on not just the location, but the minds of the youth that embrace it. So what we're going to do is we're going to walk down there before we walk off elsewhere, and we're just going to have a look down that pathway at this outside sort of, I mean, most people in this area will know it well, but this isn't for them. Well, unless you're going to take in what we're saying here and sort of see it from a different perspective, I'd love to think that, but you know, if you're from the countryside or something like that, hopefully you see exactly what I'm trying to say very quickly. Walk ahead of me, cameraman. Look at this place. Where are we? What is this? I know that there'll probably be some people thinking, oh yeah, get some shopping done, it'd be great. But At what expense? Ladies, I'm looking at you here. At what expense? And if we turn around, let's get in the shade though, because the sun might bother it. If we turn around here, cameraman, and just look behind you to remind us of this horrific bridge and the view and the world that is Stratford. And this is only the sort of central shopping point, you know, this isn't the rest of it. We're going to have a look at the new builds, etc. But we're starting very simplistically. So in the middle of the day, on a busy day, on a weekend day, this is what it's like. This is the lower food court section. Let's just have a look. Come on, let's go. So now we're stood at Stratford City, as you can see quite clearly. I'm going to read you from my masculine phone some notes that we made to help this go a little bit quicker. Okay, so Lend-Lease, environmental impact study and infrastructure designed by World Economic Forum member organisation ARUP, who also designed High Speed 1, which runs through Stratford International, which is just here. This whole development is a result of a bid from the British Olympic Association being prepared from 1997. The bid winning with the IOC in 2005 and the London Legacy Development Corporation, at one point chaired by Boris Johnson. The Olympics alone were estimated to cost 9.3 billion. Despite the original cost of 2 billion. In addition, a new postcode of E20 has been given to the area. It's a new world, it's brand new. Over 40 million passengers per year use Stratford Station, and it will be redeveloped between 2022 and 2024. So that's all we need, more development. Fifth Studio architects have been appointed to complete the job. And as you can see directly behind me is more of that Lego-like architecture, if you want to call it that. Up there is the big gangly car park. Down there is where it's very smelly and full of bins and nasty. Up there you can see that huge, nasty-looking beige-like building. That's a Holiday Inn. So, I mean, if you're coming from abroad or somewhere like that, you walk out here. There's two mindsets you're going to have. You're either going to be of the new world and impressed, or like me, and I'd walk out. If I walked out in Brussels or somewhere and it looked like this, I'd be pretty pissed off, to be honest. And I wouldn't feel like there was any point me leaving here because it looks exactly the same over there. So this, what you're looking at now, this structure, which, by the way, you're only allowed to rent in. You cannot actually purchase a property, which is why my wonderful assistant here has named it "You Shall Own Nothing and Be Happy." But in my opinion, it's "You shall own nothing and pay top dollar for the privilege." That's what I have to say about it. So anyway, this lovely building behind me is Manhattan Loft Gardens, Boyds Construction, with SA Construction, engineering company, and it cost £250 million. Right? This ominous and disturbing building attempts to advocate a green space. Oh yeah. So basically, up halfway up there, there's a garden with some wood and some green bits, and this is supposed to be a green space. Yeah. And it calls a traditional attic. It has what's called a traditionalist attic, but in reality offers a steel nightmare. These are good notes by my handy assistant. This is very true. A steel nightmare that looks more incomplete than it ever could. Impressive. The work's been done for me, because I mean, if you look at it, and their view, by the way, looking down that way, is of the bins, and you know, this metal world that's being created, this steel cement world of unpleasantness. And yes, they probably do have a bloody good view, but considering where we are, it's not the view I'd be paying that sort of money for at all, whatsoever. And if we look this way, this is us walking into the brand new world. This is East Village. This is us now walking into something which truly didn't exist. And you can say Westfield, etc., didn't exist, but this is residential. This is a new kingdom for people to live in. It's very strange. And if you brought people here who haven't been here for 20 years, they'd be gobsmacked, genuinely gobsmacked. I mean, some people, if it's only been 5 years, but many people that grow up in the local areas will tell you how heavily this place affected us. During the Olympics, for instance, everyone got home later. So I was working in Leighton a lot. We was doing deliveries and all sorts of things out of Lee Bridge Road. And the surrounding area became very, very congested. There was police everywhere stopping people for absolutely everything. Lorries would be stopped just to be weighed. You'd be given fines left, right and centre. So, you know, everyone felt like they was getting home an hour later. You know, everyone had to get up earlier just to avoid the mess that was going on in this area, and it heavily affected everyone, which didn't benefit from it at all. Because call me an old-fashioned person, I don't need an ugly pool and track in the middle of Stratford, thank you. Well, it's not even a pool, is it? It's just a track. And here is the usual reminder of what it's really like here. So this is Stratford International. And if we look down here, this billboard here, it's horrific. The local graffiti artists, and you can tell when you actually walk down and look at the billboard, you can tell they're all horrifically left-leaning. But they're actually allowed to do this as far as I can see, because no one's ever tried to stop it. This graffiti changes all the time, and it's an indicator to some of the surrounding areas where there's communities living which thrive off of that new way of life, you know, that modern artist life, if you like, if you want to call it that. So while we're here, we can look at something that I hate with a passion. This is just one of those programs where I'm pissing and moaning like an old man. But anyone that doesn't hate this decrepit monstrosity of evil, then I feel sorry for you. And that's this student accommodation, which is a Unite student accommodation centre, which looks like something out of The Fifth Element. Look at, come over here, come on, let's really dig this building out like it deserves. Before we do though, hang on, look at the other side of this. You will own nothing and pay top dollar. It's just so rank, isn't it? But these are the things that I think all the time when I'm here, and people think when they're here. And quite often you're walking around and you wonder, does anyone else see it, or is it just me? Am I just exaggerating, or do other people detest this as much as me? I mean, look at this thing. What is it? I mean, yeah, my cameraman and associates, they have other buildings that they hate even more than that. But that one really ticks me off. Look at it. And it was here before some of the others. Anyway, I'm going to calm down. Let's go. Now, upon looking at my notes, I realised I had actually made a note on that stunning building, that Unite building. Don't you just love unions? Unite students, £240 per week, 12,400 per year. It's 28 stories with 951 bedrooms, and the first post-Olympic building to be completed by BDP architects. Now, if you imagine around COVID time, or just in general, being in there, it looks like a foreign prison, doesn't it? Sort of a leisure centre prison, doesn't it? But then if we turn around, there's something equally as horrific, but a little bit newer, which is this disgusting building, which I have pure disdain for also, which is the Gantry. Right, now this is 18 stories and was built by Ardmore at a cost of £77 million. IKEA Studios work. 77 million pounds that thing there cost. Just to look like that. Am I old-fashioned? Am I unfair? You tell me. Compare it to Victorian architecture. Oh yeah, we're not going to get Victorian skyscrapers, Vin. Well, we wouldn't need so many skyscrapers if we weren't overloaded with human beings. Let's go. So this building here is cladded with glass reinforced concrete, right? And if we look at it, it looks like a... where the hell is it from? Does it want to be American? Does it want to be modern Italian? What is it trying to be, this thing? And if you look at it, it's already grubby. Look, come here, look. I don't know if the camera can pick it up, but I noticed this immediately when I'm looking at new builds, is the grime and filth that's already gathering on the side of the building. And that, you know, the architects should be prepared for all this. They should know this is going to happen. And that you'll be paying top money to stay in this horrific. I mean, look at it. You know, it's like deliberately causing a disfigured birth. You know, there's no reason to cause that. You've done that deliberately. You've gone out of your way to make it look obtuse and weird. And then directly opposite it, just in case you're simple in the brain, come over here. Just in case you're simple, it says sort of sports bar over here, right? And it's got sort of food and stuff written. But what I noticed straight away was this bar here. So look how modern it is. So this is your world. Look, this is your world. There's no pub. There's no reminder of the old. You are just in a brand new world, and it's a bar. You know, modern-esque bar, not a pub or anything like that. You wouldn't have that sort of thing here because it wasn't here before. So, you know. It's a depressing sight, really, that if I thought about it, if I was living in there, that's my view. Or, better, that's your view. Great. Yeah, first class. Anyway. With me. Can you see that building down there? Look. And just in case you wasn't capable of figuring it out for yourself, you got beer shop and food. Yeah. Okay, so that's pretty simplistic. There's no mistaking what you can get there. Look at this, look at it. Yeah. And if you imagine at night time, this is just a concrete reality. You know, it is like the term concrete jungle. There's a better gym there. Just look, your existence is. It's like something on an alien mothership, isn't it? And yes, obviously, I live among it. You know, I'm not alien to this, but it doesn't mean I can't notice it and it doesn't bother me. Look at this poxy thing in the distance. It's mortifying. Look. What are these supposed to be? Look. You see these unnecessary grooves that are just stuck inside the building for no reason. So of course, you need your local health and well-being centre, don't you? So what do you think of that building, ladies and gents? Think that's a nice building? Think it's nice and charming? Sir Ludwig Gutman Health and Wellbeing Centre. Charming. And before we sort of bugger off to the next area, I couldn't help but notice these stunning artistic displays on the balconies. Nice little swirly shell there. No thank you, especially with the money that they'll cost. But in case you hadn't already poisoned the place enough, you thought you'd stick these horrific jigsaw pieces on the glass. Well, thank you very much, whoever did that. Genuinely appreciate it. Thank you so much. It's really brightened the area and my day. Thank you. Right, so obviously imagine if you are a kid in this sort of area. This is your environment, right? So if we just look up at where we are, you know, this is the kids' play park. A minute ago I saw a cat in here. Come back down for me. I saw a cat in here burying something over there, and it just helps symbolise to me, you know, this cat is in a concrete jungle. Look at this place. This isn't how. And yes, lots of people in London had concrete jungles. They had them playgrounds with cages in, but it doesn't make it right. That's still part of the problem. So, wait, let me get more comfortable. Right. So, this sort of environment, it might look nice from the balconies, but compared with behind me and what have you, I mean, turn around, look at this little treehouse thing here. Great. Oh look, I heard a crow. Bit of nature among all this, so let's see if I can get off this successfully, shall we? I'm going to go this way. Right, that's smooth. Smooth. Right? Let's go. So before I read from my handy notes, we're going to have a look at this information board. So, a view of Ulysses Place, learning about the landscape around you. Standing in front of you, you'll find a new Chobham Academy, the new Chobham Academy, built to provide free schooling for 1,800 local children from 3 boroughs. The school has been designed in the shape of a drum, with no front or back, symbolising openness to every part of the community. So that symbolises openness to every part of the community, apparently. Right, so let's continue. Next door to the academy, you'll find the similarly impressive Health and Community Centre, which you remember was that, we can't see it from here, it was that Judge Dredd looking building that was very sharp, which if you was in a parachute you wouldn't want to land on. This building has 2 important functions. The first as a state-of-the-art NHS medical centre. The second as a community focal point for local residents. That's the kind of the... Although this spot might have the most urban character within East Village, its landscape is inspired by the natural environment. The trees, largely ash and Scots pine, are not scattered randomly, but planted in clumps of... So it's not very natural, is it then, is it? They're quite well choreographed. You know, they're planted in a specific methodical way, aren't they? Are not scattered randomly, but planted in clumps, reflecting the natural arrangement found along the River Lee Valley. The curved wall running along the north and western edges of Ulysses Place, which is this thing here, has been built to separate the Academy from the busy carriageway of Celebration Avenue. The excerpt that you see on the wall is from the poem Ulysses by Alfred Tennyson. So if we have a quick look here before I read from my notes, if we come over here, cameraman, and have a look at the sort of imagery that we've got here. Right. Yeah, just look at this modern art reality. And here you've got the health centre, which is the one we was looking at. And it is just absolutely morbid. But before we close off on this particular scene, I'm going to read you a few formal notes. Actually, before we do, I just want to point something out that we noticed. So, see that window there? It says, vote Nathan Danny. And it also says it at this window here. And then upon closer inspection, you can see that that's actually the Green Party. So that's the sort of mindset and mentality that you have in this location. So some of the more so formal parts of the Village East, or East Village, is as follows. Residential, designed by Arup, Cilantro Engineering, and built by Lend-Lease as part of the 2012 Olympic bid for long-term housing in the area. Buildings are in blocks of 8 to 12 stories and use cheap materials such as glass reinforced concrete, GRC, which are already stained after 10 years. That's what I was talking about. You know, many modern buildings, when you look at them, not long after they've been built, they become grubby, grimy, especially next to train tracks. Since then, more development has occurred in this area, some of these being taller, such as Manhattan Loft Gardens, Plot 08. In addition, the land in this area and the rest of the Olympic Village was raised by dumping the spoil removed from the HS1 Phase 2 tunnels onto the current site of East Village and Stratford City. Yeah, well, this is a raised point, basically. The H21 job, when they dug out the tunnels, they raised the ground in this area, which is why it looks down upon Westfield. Lots of people would have you believe that all the Olympics did was remove old, redundant industrial land and convert it into housing and a shopping centre. However, in order to build the Olympics, 450 homes had to be demolished on a little known estate called Clays Lane. I can vouch for this. Clays Lane was built 1977 as a housing co-op and was demolished in 2007 to make way for the East Village. And that's just before I close, it's something that I should really summarise that I've said before, that the many families and people that existed here before were paid off, swept aside. There's very few that are still here, but the world of before really is unrecognisable, and all of the legendary stories of the area that made it special, make it special, they would have gone with them. But obviously, don't worry, prices around here are reasonable. If you want a scrambled eggs or toast, it's only a tenner for the privilege. Ginger and mint, ladies and gents, that's what you need, your local caff. £10 for a bit of scrambled egg. Bosh. Easy peasy. Lemon squeeze. Let's go. spring water on it. I'll tell you what's bloody good. Spring water on a mission is bloody good, I'll tell you that. So the yuppie's got something right. So what you get in this area now is this influx of people that have moved in from outside the area, and they believe it's a gentrified, hipster sort of environment, but at night ultimately it just goes back to being what it really is. A dangerous part of London. And if anything, I find the yuppie modernist sensation all around us just as distasteful as the modern architecture and the horrific crime of the area. But you do make a good question, I'll give you that. So here I am, stood on one of the green spaces of Stratford, but behind me is a huge new build which runs all along the back there. You can't really see too well from here. We'll get some different shots. But that is Here East. Now, I'm going to read you some notes about Here East, and I could, like I said, stand here and go on for hours at a time at what was there before and so on, but we'll try and be as brief and factual as we can. So, Here East, starting seed, built as the media centre for the Olympics on the site of the Greyhound racing track and built by Cerillion. Refurbished by Lang O'Rourke, Hawkins Brown and Bureau Happold. 335 million initial cost, right? 90 renovation cost. So that's 90 million renovation cost. Since then, more buildings have been constructed in the area, including multiple housing blocks, which you can see there, and they surround it. Institutions with facilities such as Staffordshire University, Loughborough University, the UCL, Ford, and other various institutions. When you look closely at this development, it appears to exist for the purpose of the furtherment of Agenda 21, with a heavy focus on industry and technology, whilst providing living quarters for people, which is incredibly true. Because not only is it a space like all the others where people are living, it's an important place for them to plan and continue these modernist ideas. The vast majority of industry appears to be part of the fourth industrial revolution, such as AI, smart technologies, 3D printing, and so on, whilst provisions exist for art studios and food outlets. That's Here East there, that car park looking building. You see some of the new builds next to it, which pointlessly has its brickwork, you know, as different shades. And even there I can see it's already becoming mucky. I can see lines down the building that shouldn't be there. There's been little care taken. At the bottom we see it's all been bricked out and looks ugly as hell. You see there where there should be shops. It's been boarded over or had metal sheets put over it. And this, as far as modern architecture goes, is actually a little bit more tasteful than some of the other, but that doesn't make it tasteful. So, but if we turn all the way round, you'll see where we are. We're just down the road from what was the Olympic Stadium, but is now West Ham Stadium. And we can use this sign here next to me to sort of catch our bearings. Basically, all of this is brand new, all of it. And down here you've got Hackney Wick, this is all becoming new build as well. It used to be mainly industrial sites that actually would help the local area, plastic works and things like that. There was actually in another documentary I did, I mentioned there was a plaque there for the first ever use of plastic that was first developed in Hackney Wick, and now the plaque and the building's gone, and instead it's a new apartment. So what this is a lot of artist types, if you like, who are living in either estates or warehouse environments, and these people love this, and this is the new world here, right? So we're about to go and have a look at West Ham Stadium, which is, it's said here London Stadium, it's the Olympic Stadium, it was the Olympic Stadium, but now it's West Ham Stadium, which, you know, many weekends this place is absolutely packed with West Ham fans, but they would be the first to tell you it's not quite the same. It's not quite got the same character as, say, Upton Park would have done. And all of this here, this is all new. See where the water works. You've got the aquatic centre, which is a disgusting building, but unfortunately we don't have. Here's the aquatic centre here, and by the side of the aquatic centre, in the water for some reason, they develop things into strange pencils and so on. But anyway, why don't we go and have a further look at the stadium. Let's go. I thought we'd have a sort of stop, halfway reflection if you like, so I can slurp from my yuppie water for just a moment and then turn around and reflect upon what's behind me. So over there is the International Quarter, which is, you know, Gotham ultimately. And over here, these two towers, for years and years, they had Mace written on them. So people would have recognised that from the local area. Mace being the same contractor that created the Millennium Eye, the London Eye, which I've always detested and refused to go on throughout my whole life. But while we're here, let's have a look just over here. And we're going to talk about that in just a moment, what that is. But before I do, I want to point to the building behind it. Can you see that curved building there? I don't know how well the camera can pick up. There's a bit of glass on the front, but that's called the Aquatic Centre, right? And if you look just below it, you see the pencils, the coloured pencils sticking out of the canal there in some modern art deco. See it? So if we look at this beige building, right, you know what it reminds me of instantaneously? A sort of Las Vegas casino set, that sort of theme. And you look behind it and it looks like the Aquatic Centre suits that sort of theme, if you know what I mean. Back in the distance, you can see some of the old builds that are still standing from Stratford, but they're accompanied by the new builds. And we're going to head our way over to some of these new buildings, which I'm going to discuss shortly. But before I do, we're going to turn round and we're going to look just over here, because this is the Wick. That's Hackney Wick, which is separated. It's like an island, which is separated. On one side you've got a dual carriageway, which is the other side of all this, and then on this side you have a canal. And this sort of makes it its own little world, if you like, and it's being redeveloped heavily. And you can see even on these modern buildings here, you can see the grime, the grub, the filth accumulating. Recently there was one of these buildings that become heavily damaged naturally, and everyone had to be moved out of it. So what is going to happen to the Wick, which you can see happening over there on things like Fish Island and so on, is an entire new development and an entire new world. And the art worlds that are there, there's canal boat lifestyles, there's all sorts of people that live there that are heavily against this. Let's have it right, there's nothing rebellious about liking modern architecture. There's nothing, you're not standing against the grain, and that's why modern art quite often is misrepresented. It tries to be rebellious. Banksy is a clear example of this. Banksy will say he's against soldiers, say he's against this, that and the other, but his art is sold in institutions. He's one of the most famous people on earth. I mean, I could talk about his wife and other things which completely undermine him being a rebel against the new world. So quite often architecture of today is not just an insight into a changing world, but an insight into the minds behind that changing world. Bit of yuppie water, let's go. Okay, so I've got some more notes here to help us get this done as swimmingly as possible. But this building here, which is under construction with tens of millions of cranes, is the International Quarter. So let's have a little look into the International Quarter, shall we? Partnership between London and Continental Railways and Lend-Lease development only started here in 2014. Initial development was more corporate focused, with institutions such as the Financial Conduct Authority, TfL, UNICEF, Cancer Research UK, the British Council and HMRC renting offices. Just have a quick look at the stadium. Which is now a lot further than it was from West Ham previously. You know, there's the colours of the blue and claret of West Ham, but you see where it says Queen Elizabeth Olympic Park? That's another thing about modernism that people don't quite understand. You see where they plaster colourful things around your town or city, and there's posters everywhere and it's all colourful. It's part of separating you from that morbid-looking cultural architecture, which is a reminder of class and culture. So that when you see a rainbow zebra crossing and things like that, or things like this, that Queen Elizabeth Olympic Park with the green and the blue and the pink and stuff like that, it's all in aid of further separating us from reality, from something which is pure and something which you want to pass down. Why would you want to pass down this kingdom to your youth? There's nothing to be proud of. It's just someone else's development, that's all it is. Just have a little, before we walk off, just turn back round and look at this kingdom once more. Nothing to be proud of here, ladies and gents. Nothing. So I'm stood now on the site which was Pudding Mill River, which was filled in specifically for the Olympic site, to continue the development of the Olympic site. We're stood beside Marshgate Lane, which is all newly developed after the filling in of the river. And here on this bridge is one of the few reminders of the old. Just above this horrific load of pigeon funk you see here, which is a characteristic of London, we have this sign, the Metropolitan Board of Works, Northern Outfall Sewer, constructed in 1862 by John Thwaites, Esquire, Chairman, Engineer, Edmund Cooper, Resident Engineer, such and such. But I doubt very much anyone in the local area gives a toss about such interesting points. The A on this wall is an anarchist sign, so I won't go on about it in this particular episode, but this area, Hackney Wick and so on, Whitechapel, very anarchistic areas, and you'll find that much of the graffiti community and so on, they are not just liberal, they are overtly radically left-leaning, and it's sort of, they are quite happy really about what's gone on in this society. I mean, what's rebellious, as I said, about being in support of the modern world? There's nothing rebellious about that. Taxi station there. And where we are now, come here from the cameraman, obviously I've not put the mic on at the minute, so but that white building there, or creamish building, the other side of that is the main high road which leads up to the Bow flyover. So here is the final stages leading up to the end of Stratford of these horrific developments, and just to the right here we see this horrific stadium. Now, I call it a stadium, whatever you want to call it. It's actually been built. You can see it's got ABBA written on it because it was built for an ABBA concert. So it's known as the ABBA building or the ABBA stadium or whatever, however you want to pronounce it. To me, it's bloody ugly. But you know the film Aliens or Aliens versus Predator. The spaceships out of that is sort of how I feel buildings like that's what they are, if you know what I mean. And then just take a moment, cameraman, to just notice where we're walking into. Walk with me. The only natural noise I can hear is that of the crows. as I said in the past, when I was young, right, I used to look at some of the skyscrapers very young and think, wow, they look disgusting, they've got to come down. And I said in another piece, if you had told me 20 years ago that I would be upset by the modernisation of Stratford, I'd say, what are you on about? That's ridiculous. But buildings like that, those nasty blue ones there, which you can see are old, though I still am no fan of them, they are a part of the small reminder I have of what this place was beforehand. So the things that I used to detest as a child are some of the few reminders I have of that childhood. Now it might be a little bit noisy where I am, but I'm just going to cover this side of the road, the other side of the road. And if you can imagine, just look down to that white building for me as well. Right, now, when I was young, behind here you had a large gypsy site, you had car upholsterers doing tinted windows and things like that. There was a lot of community and family businesses that were running in that area, you know, for cheap rent, and it was their area, you know. I mean, our family, we had warehouses in the area as well, further down towards Plaistow and West Ham. But this area over here, one of my admins or note takers quite rightly calls IKEA land. Now, in the past, I did a video just up there, which I might include in this feature, of a modern art piece when we described when IKEA bought and sold the land around the times of the Olympics. But what this site is now, or was, the property of IKEA, who bought it in 2010 during the Olympic craze. It was actually George Osborne who gave them permission to buy this plot of land, and now this is what we have as a result. Like I said, they've made a tiny bit of effort with these buildings down here, but is this really what we need? Consistent new development. And if you're going to consistently develop, why do we need eyesores like this epoxy thing here? You tell me. You tell me. So I'm going to read you a few notes on this, which is behind me, which you can see that's all brand new, just like Village East. It's all brand new. It's out of the wrapper, you know, different world. So in the 1800s was home to many wharves and works, such as ironworks, jam factories, oil and paint works. Because just over there, the canal runs by it, where you would have had boats bringing in shipments of goods in and out. And even an oil refinery. In the early 2000s, this was home to more grassroots industry, such as window tinters, as I was mentioning earlier. In 2012, IKEA bought the 26 acres of land, which runs all the way up to the Bow flyover, which you can see construction is still going on all around there by them huts, and just there by the flyover is another canal. Well, the canal. Braden Woods Architects designed the new neighbourhood, in quotes neighbourhood, for 1,200 people, 2,500 jobs, 5,800 metres of office and hotels, which is currently being built by Landprop Holding BV, in brackets, part of IKEA, at an unknown cost. Now, we can only begin to imagine, this site is humongous, and we can only begin to imagine the cost. And people are saying, well, what does it matter? What does it matter what the cost is? Well, because it would probably cost next to nothing to create something stunning. It doesn't require tens of people, and these odds and sods of architectural eyesores, which they don't match up, they don't depict any particular culture or nation state. And you know, what's this pink thing down there? Look at it. You know, where are we? France? Anyway, I think I've made my point. I scan once more from there for me. You can see this is all newly developed. This is all picked up, going up now. And just scan across here, because all of this up to that old blue estate in the distance, if you can see it, just let me put my finger on camera. There, that old estate, that's where it stops, and all along here, right the way back, is all brand new. I suppose if you're a modernist fan, I'm doing a good job advertising it for you, but if you're not and you see what I'm saying, then hopefully you'll learn to detest it as much as me. So here I am now at City Mill Lock. Directly behind me is new developments and newly developing developments. But just to my left is something fascinating for the area, which is two interesting buildings. One would be the old Lock House, which is in the middle there. And the other would be this building closest to me, on my immediate left. Now, if I asked you when you thought that was built, what would you say? Obviously you can tell it's clean brickwork, but when would you say that was built? Now what if I told you this was built in the 2010s and the 2010s? What does this tell us? Do me a favour, cameraman. I want you to look up that way in contrast and then look back at me. Look up at the new buildings up there and then look back at me. And the fundamental important point that I want to make here is that there's no excuse to build like that when this is so easy to replicate. Walk down a little bit with me. Because in sheer contrast of this lovely environment here, you have that. Which is a complete polar opposite to this. Directly behind you is a new build, and just there, we was here, what must have been months ago, and there's a homeless person living under that bridge. So even this lovely little quaint environment can't quite escape it. But cameraman, walk down for me, onto here. And just have a look at the contrast. Come back to me. So knowing that this building here is modern, it highlights the point that I've made many times, that it's a deliberate thing. And many corporations, you know, people say it's not the architect's fault. Well, first of all, modern architects are not something to be proud of. Second, they aspire towards internationalist, globalist regimes who are not just thinking about their capital. You know, they're not just thinking about finance. They're thinking about the changing of society and the changing of who and what we are as people. Because there's no reason that we couldn't have a higher standard of architecture where people are competing to build things of beauty, as opposed to bidding for contracts to build things of ugliness. There's a stadium, but if we look at this new build, right, look at the sort of mentality of some of the locals. Look at that. So yes, it's a disturbing new building, what have you, but why do you think it's okay to come along and spray paint on it? Hmm? Now, this building here runs along the high road, which you can hear in the traffic running along there. And it doesn't look like much, but that's not what its finances would suggest. So this is the River Heights complex. Its penthouse is valued at 2.9 million. Development at 60 million pounds. Built by Western Homes Developers, contains the Refugee and Migrant Forum of Essex and London. Yearly budget for this is £250,000. PA to try and help illegal immigrants slash asylum seekers. This is funded by Greggs, boroughs of Redbridge, Waltham Forest, the EU, of course, the Lottery, Lloyds Bank, and the Mayor of London. It also contains, I think that's Arag Housing Association, which aims to provide every refugee in London with, quote, a good home. So that's what buildings like this represent, ladies and gents. Not only is it incredibly expensive to live there, but it's a centre for migrants coming in to find themselves a home here or elsewhere, with many institutes that would have been active and alive during the industrial revolution of the past, Quakers and so on, and this is the final result, buildings like this. What an anticlimax of globalist achievement, eh? So this is a site of the new UCL, the University College of London. Yes, I know it's not the best name for a college, but I didn't name it, they did. So I'll just read a note to pinpoint why where I'm stood is so important to my left and right. Two buildings in phase one, Paul Street and Marshgate, part of a 10-year, £1.25 billion programme, will offer master's degrees in subjects such as global urbanism, perfect place for it, sensor systems, manufacture and commercialisation of stem cell and gene therapies. And citizen science, of course. Citizen science. EAST stands for Experiments, Arts, Society and Technology. So I'll leave that to you to decipher. So Paul Street, which is this one here, yes, you can see it's residential, but on the bottom we have a space for lecturers, teachers and so on. So Paul Street, which is opening this year, will contain labs, teaching and research spaces on the lower floors. The roof terrace will contain large granite paving slabs which are too heavy for people to lift. Now these are very expensive. Okay, these are not the sort of things that government buildings that take money from the public should have. You know, wealthy people pay for that sort of thing in their houses at their own expense, not at our expense. So that's just a side point there. On top, 500 student apartments at 190 per week, right? 9,900 per year, with a shared kitchen will be provided. Lifschutz David, Sandilands architect, AKT engineers, and built by Vinci Construction. Now that's ominous enough, with some really concerning points that have been covered. But why don't we talk about this Judge Dredd thing over here that could be anywhere else but England. So this is Marshgate, also built by Mace. Mace, the same ones that built the London Stadium, rather the Olympic Stadium, as well as the Millennium Eye, London Eye. This will open in 2023 and is designed by Stanton Williams Architects, AKT, developed and built by Mace. This will contain an Institute of Making, Advanced Propulsion Lab, Manufacturing Futures Lab, Robotics and Autonomous Systems Centre, Culture Lab. Mace is considered to be the best construction company in the United Kingdom with its safety first, no compromise approach, and has built projects such as the London Eye, Chelsea Barracks Luxury Estate in Battersea. Each house costs up to 50 million. Battersea Power Station, Europe's single largest building site currently, by the way. Birmingham New Street Station redevelopment, Adobe's new head office, now this, I always struggle to pronounce this, the ArcelorMittal Orbit Site Edition, Aviva's head office refurbishment, Gatwick Airport Plane Bridge, and so on and so on. Basically, it is the most prestigious, most respected building contractor, building firm in the United Kingdom. And here it is, responsible for this. At the end of it all, only you can decide what you think of it. I know what I think of it. I know what I think of the institutes that are setting up in there. In my humble, modest opinion, it's indefensible. And these things that are developed to help our society will do the complete opposite. So this here is one of the older communities of Stratford which still does exist, and this is the Carpenter's Estate. Behind me is one of the few actual remaining local pubs, West Ham pubs, and on a match day this place is absolutely rammed out. And if you stand up for me please, cameraman, and look around for me, you'll notice that there is a host of old buildings hidden behind. Look down here for me, you'll see some of the older architecture. Right, and look up at this old-fashioned council estate. Right, same as over there, which they'll be coming down in time. But this is, if you like, one of, if not the main last bastion of the area, which helps explain what it used to be like. Was it safe? Was it the best place in the world for most? No. But it had a lot more character than that. And soon, buildings like that will be no more, and that's why we have the pub series, which is also about global homogeny in its own way. It's about showing us that art and architecture isn't the only thing changing us, but culture and community. And many pubs like this, they'll be closed down years ahead of their time, deliberately bought by people to be boarded up, to stop people having a laugh, joining together and forming those community bonds that they're so desperately trying to destroy. And how long will it be until we no longer have a carpenter's arms? Not long, I imagine. See in there as well, in the window, it actually says pie and mash. I'm a huge pie and mash fan. I love it. You know. But in the area, this it's not like it used to be. So anyway, E15. Coming in. other side of the station, Stratford station. You can see this arts thing here, which by the end of the day, I'm tired of saying how much I hate these things. I think it's quite evident how horrific it is. Then Stratford wouldn't be complete without its fruit baskets. So I'm not sure what these people over here are doing with their stilt rollerblades. I'm not interested in their boombox, but I'm still subject to it because I have to walk through Stratford. So take one look at this. See this building here? It is filthy, it is grimy. Yeah? That attaches to the old mill. We're going to go have a look at the old mill now. Let's go. Now, I'm directly stood underneath these metal tree things, but directly to my left, your right, under here for years and years, homeless people would live unchallenged, and this place would be rife for crime, prostitution, you know, all of the evil things you can imagine, kidnapping. But this, we spoke about this bus shelter earlier, which was built in the 90s, this horrific structure which they would have stared at. And directly here on this sign, we get the reminder of where you are and what this place is. Come in. Look up, look out. Help protect yourself from street robbery. Be aware of your surroundings and your valuables. Now, many of the locals around here, they don't see what this place is. They think it's a great place because it has a Yo Sushi or something like that. They don't understand what Newham is, what Stratford is. Come with me. It's just in the camera's eyesight there was the site that we saw this morning when we first turned up, which is clearly where someone has been hurt. They could have been stabbed, shot, we don't know. All we know is the obvious telltale sign of a police line. Now I'm going to be sensible here. I'm not going to walk too close because no, my luck, my DNA will fall over there and that'll be me. Sorry mate, you know what happened there? I've got a clue mate. I've got a clue. Yeah, I'm not a big fan of asking. Just ask one of the locals working out the back of the mall there. They don't know what happened, but it'll be the same as usual. The police car parked just the other side of this van here. And everyone will happily go about their business. Look, you see over the road now, you know, it's midday, people are shopping. Oh, don't worry about the murderous blue lines. We'll just ignore that and go and buy some fruit baskets or something, you know. Stratford, ladies and gents. Stratford. London, ladies and gents. London. And as you can see, walking out of the other side of that mall, though obviously there was a police line waiting for us on the first side, when we come out the second side, it's almost even more morbid, because that side there's this new infrastructure, new buildings, blah blah blah, but over this side it's a reminder into the days of old. But it reminds us of the Stratford that we weren't all that proud of back then. We've got great big steps to take together if we're going to fix this world of ours. We can't just sweep over it with a blanket of modern filth. All I can do is ask you the same thing that I always do. Please, think for yourself.